Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. My name is Chris Legaspi, and today we're going to continue the Skills That Pay the Bills series. Today's topic will be design and composition. So, one of the skills it takes to be a successful movie poster artist, or really any commercial illustration, or even if you want to do beautiful fine art gallery paintings, you're going to need some attractive eye-catching composition. Is just a big part of what we do, no matter what kind of art you make. In this video, I'm not going to cover the mechanics of composition or the principles. What I'm going to share in this video and demonstrate are just some exercises. So these are exercises that I would recommend to my students and ones that I do myself. And we're going to focus more on what I call the linear side of design, basically just the arranging of shapes. The other part of design that's important is the value composition, which we will discuss in the next video or in a future video. But today was going to be all about linear design, basically arranging lines, shapes, and the various elements. And then these exercises will help you to get there. And before we begin, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to my free Insiders Club. Insiders Club members get first access to these weekly live streams, and you also get access to other live events, and you get discounts on courses and programs, along with access to free lessons and other free content available only to subscribers. So all you have to do is go to www.drawwithchris.com, and there you can enter your email and you'll be good to go. We're going to start with some warm-up exercises. We're going to do some sketching just to get warmed up, get our design juices flowing. And then we're going to do some more, again, some more loose composition and thumbnail sketching. Then we're going to analyze the design of some master artists. Then we're going to analyze the composition of movie stills. And finally, we're going to actually do a nice longer study, if time permits, of a movie still or a screen capture. So for those of you watching live or on replay, thank you for joining me today. Before we begin, let me know, where are you located? Where are you watching from? What time is it for you? I'm currently in Thailand at the moment. It's 9 in the morning for me. So comment below, where are you located? And wherever you are, thank you for joining me. We're going to begin with a little simple and fun warm-up exercise called the 2x1 shape design sketch, and you can follow along with me. And the rules are real simple. We're going to sketch just a quick compositional thumbnail. The rules are we can only use 3 geometric shapes. And of course, the 3 geometric shapes are circle, squares or rectangles, and triangles. And that's it. In our compositions, 2 of the shapes must be the same. So two squares, 1 circle, 2 circles, 1 triangle, and so on. Also, you want to try to communicate or illustrate a theme or an idea or a story even. So, and I'll demonstrate that as we go along. Here's just a quick example of this exercise. So it's really loose and basic, no pressure. You don't have to do a finished design. It doesn't have to be very good. This is just to get warmed up. Okay, we have our 3 shapes. Two have to be the same. And this format is, the vertical format, obviously, for posters and book covers and comics and things. I would also practice the wide format. Maybe you're into concept art, obviously, or things like that, or photography even. Okay, so I'm just gonna sketch, and I'm gonna start with the theme. Let's say love comes to mind. Let's see if I can think of a Switch brushes. Okay, there's one. Let's see if I can just go even more abstract. Two rectangles and a circle. How about two circles and a rectangle? Let's see what I can come up with there. Maybe two faces, a door or a building or something. Maybe it's like two lovers and this is the house or something that the story is set in. Let's see. How about two circles and a triangle? Hmm, yeah. Oh, here's one. Love triangle. How about that? These are a little strange. Right now, I'm drawing on a computer for this class, right? And it's it's full screen for me. So these boxes are huge. And normally these boxes for me are I draw in my sketchbook, and they're really tiny. They're like about 1 inch or 3 centimeters big. They're really big, so it's a little confusing for me actually. I'm so used to designing from a distance or small. When you draw small, it simulates being far away. Okay, I like this one. There's two heads and a triangle. That's a nice one. I mean, comment below. Have you seen a recent movie poster or book cover that has this one? This one looks this one looks pretty solid. And I'm just getting started, just getting warmed up. Let's see if I can do the inverse. Two triangles and a circle. What does that look like? Whenever I do this exercise, I think of the book Picture This by Molly Bang. Comment below if you have heard of or read that book, Picture This. Man, that is a phenomenal book. What I like about it is so simple, so easy to understand. Here's a nice one. A lot of times when I design, I try to like always think of scale. So when you're doing this exercise at home and you're new to designing, there's no pressure here. It's all basic shapes that we can all draw, and the purpose is to warm your hand up. But play with a scale. See what make something one shape or element huge take up 2/3 of the screen or the space, and see what that does. Oh, I like this triangle circle thing. It's it's working out nicely. Right now, these are my two favorites. This one and the one on the right. But it's okay, we keep going, you just these and the whole purpose of this sketch really is to do a lot. To do a lot because it's in a lot of ways design is a brain muscle. It's not really a hand muscle. Like drawing portraits. I'm sure you're watching this. You like to draw portraits and realistic things, right? Realistic portraits, realistic figures and characters. That junk is hard. That takes time. That takes a brutal amount of time and labor. physical labor with your hand. So your hand has to be somewhat trained, you know what I mean? Your hand has to have some mileage, just like being good at a sport. You kind of have to be, you need to do these exercises to train your muscles. But design is a mental, it's a mental exercise really. So that's when you do this, think of it as a mental exercise. So don't worry too much about how it looks. What's happening to me, I'm taking so long. Normally I really sketch freestyle. It's more fun that way. In fact, let me do one more set, but I'm just going to go faster and more freestyle. Okay, I'm just going to do one more set of warm-ups. I'm not going to talk so much and think so much. It's more difficult. See, this is how it's meant to be done. Just loose, sketch, have fun. Don't overthink. I was overthinking last time. So I'm trying to talk and give you guys something useful here. Just play with ways you can arrange elements. That's really all this is about. And this is a lot more fun on paper, actually. I swear I should either switch to iPad or the Wacom where you draw on screen. What the heck's that thing called? I forgot. Cintiq. And one thing I like to play with too is angles. So oftentimes I'll just, when I like a composition, I'll throw it in different angles. Angle it left, angle it right. See what that looks like. Huh, that's an interesting one. Let me play with that again. And placement too, right? If I like something, I'll put it all the way in the left quadrant, or I'll put it all the way in the right quadrant. Oh, that's nice. Yeah. So placement is can be a lot of fun. Let's see. Oh, that's interesting. A little abstraction reminds me of Total Recall. It's a nice one. This could be stuff or text in the middle, two characters. Okay, so just a quick warm up, nothing too serious, just to get your mind going. A lot of design is mental and it just needs to be, you need to warm up your brain because your brain's like a muscle. Okay, our next exercise is what I call the poster pose thumbnail. Similar thing, we do some really loose and rough sketching, nothing finished, no pressure to do a beautiful drawing at all. This is total thumbnailing, sketching, getting your ideas down. What we're going to do here is we're going to take one character in a basic pose. I call it a poster pose. The majority of posters, or even book covers that have a character focused book cover, like let's say you're just doing like a shot of a character holding a big sword or a big gun, that's typically the same thing in movie posters. One character shot either full body or up to the knees or up to the waist, a bust even. And they typically have the same kind of casual pose with the hand on the hip. So we're going to do some compositional just sketches, play around with this. And we're going to start with just playing with one figure. And then we'll play with one figure and a head or two figures. And I'll explain more as I go along. And here is just a quick example. You can see just very loose, very rough. Okay, so I'm just going to sketch a figure. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's going to be female in this case. She's got her hand on her hip, and other hand she's holding a MacGuffin or a gun, whatever. MacGuffin is a thing that characters in movies go after for the plot. Like in Avengers, the MacGuffin was those stones, Infinity Stones. Okay, so there's my character and her shot. Okay, that's quite ugly. The placement is terrible. Let's see if I can do better. What if I put her here? Upper left corner. And that's what's really fun about this exercise is that you can play with variations so easily, and you could play with placement. Placement is so important. If I give her a sword, it'll be just like Kill Bill now, one of the many Kill Bill posters that have the Uma Thurman holding the sword with the yellow jumpsuit. Okay, that one's okay. Let's see. What if place her in the upper right? I don't know. Let's try it again. Oh, upper right, and then with a dramatic upshot. That's nice. There you go. It's little, and then maybe she has a long shadow or something. There you go. A little bit of an upshot, not too dramatic. I'm going to change her from hand and sword, gun and sword. She's a double action star. Wow. Okay, what if we do high angle? So we're going to play with the camera. So we're going to look down. Let's say same pose, but looking down. Oh, let's say she's looking up. So she's looking up at the camera, but the camera is above her, the bird's eye view or high angle. This is not easy either. If you want to practice that, I got a couple videos that'll help you develop that skill as well. I think it is in the series. Yep, that's right. Okay, what if we do extreme low angle? Oh, I like those. Those are always fun. Oh, I like this one. You can do like right under the boobs. It's always a nice one. And then she's holding her gun or whatever, or MacGuffin, infinity stones or whatever. It's important to the story. Low angle's tough. This is one good way to practice is to just do freehand sketching. This would be nice. You can put the title and stuff here. Let's come up with a couple more. How about full body, centered, but back turned? That's a nice one. Let's do her back turn to us. Casual pose, back turn, and I don't know, maybe there's a something like that. I don't know. Standing on the world. Okay, that one's not too interesting. How about, let's see, full body, cropped, left, right. Let's play with the angle. Okay, how about like the first shot on the left, not low angle, but at a just rotate the composition basically, and then she can. There you go. There you go. It's a little better than the first one, that's for sure. And one more. How about extreme close up? It's very generic and boring, but that's okay. We got to try it to know if it is generic and boring. You're like, okay, but I have done many, 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 many of those. I've been asked to do many, many of this simple headshot. It's very common in modern posters now. Let's see. Just do a couple more. I'm just going to sketch and try not to talk so much. So I'm going to be a little bit quiet here. How about extreme close up, but only the body? We hide the face. And she could be holding her gun or whatever superpower thing she's got, whatever that is. There you go. It's a nice one. I've seen a couple of these. So it played with angle, high angle, low angle, upper left, upper right. How about just play with the placement? Maybe she's oh, it's a nice one. And she's looking at something over here. I don't know what it is yet, but whatever it is, it's big and bigger than her. Okay, so I'm going to do a couple, one more set, and I'm going to demonstrate we can have two elements now. So play with just having one figure, various variations, and then try to do two characters. Okay, I'm quickly going to do some warm-up sketches of two characters now, or one head and a character figure, one head and a figure. So there's our heroine there, and then our villain or whatever male character, and he's got a sword on his shoulder, whatever. Okay, so there's one. How about we do the oh, here's one who got a male character or whatever, villain, antagonist, and then we have our main character doing her casual pose, holding her MacGuffin. It's a nice one. And this stage is where how I begin all of my design work, and this stage always comes before the tone. How about I do a vignette? I always like these a lot. So you got the male character or the villain or the hero, and he's vignetted. And this is a really nice. This looks like every thriller poster ever. I think I just comment below. Can you think of a recent movie you saw that had this exact poster? This is really common. I call it the big head, where you have the big head of a character framing whatever, something within the silhouette. Let's see. About two figures back to back. So as I'm drawing, I'm just jumping around various genres and themes, right? So maybe this one on just the one I just did, maybe it's a thriller genre. This one is like buddy, it's like a more comedy. Comment below if you can think of a think of at least one movie you saw recently that had this exact poster, or even comic book that had this exact cover. Very, very, very common thing, and that's why I always encourage students to, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If a design is used quite a bit and it looks good, and you see lots of professionals doing it, it might be a good idea to put that in your portfolio too. Okay, there's one. How about, oh, I love this one. This one's a lot of fun. The two lying down, they're looking at each other. That could be a love story or whatever. Then you put the text here. Maybe her MacGuffin is here. It's a cop love story. How about that? Haven't seen those in a while. I grew up in the 80s, and for some reason, buddy cop movies were everywhere for a while. Okay, so there's just some quick examples. I'm going to move forward here for the sake of time. Okay, exercise number 3. We're going to do some shape and design analysis after a master artist. The goal here is not to do like a full copy, try to do a real perfect and clean copy. The goal is more to study their geometric shapes, the spacing and placement of things, right? Are things in the lower quadrant, upper quadrant, and also look for focal points and intersections where things intersect. Maybe they use the rule of thirds. Let's go through this, and this is by Edgar Payne here, one of the greatest landscape composers, in my opinion. Okay, I'm going to start by trying to match the aspect ratio as best as I can. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is just a study, a shape analysis. Okay. So I'm going to look for obvious geometry. What's geometry? We know circles, rectangles, triangles. That's why one of the reasons why I recommend Edgar Payne is geometry is very, very obvious. Look at this first one, upper left. Let's just start with the ground. That's an obvious rectangle. Do we see any other obvious geometry? Do you see any triangles? Of course, you have a mountain. So, but the mountain is not a perfect triangle. It's got a little bit of blockiness to it. These little men on horses. I'll just use rectangles for now. The clouds are obvious curves. A little bit rectangular shaped, huh? But the curved shapes reads more as clouds. What else? We have some more not so obvious things. We could also look at the light and dark shape. So the shadow shape gives us a little bit more detail underneath the mountain, or at the base of the mountain. You have some sort of these curved, sweeping triangle shapes. And then in the ground, you have some of these sort of, I'm looking at the green bushes and things, and just trying to really make it very geometric. That's exactly how Edgar Payne draws and designs. So this is why he's so great to learn from. Here I'm just kind of refining the detail a little bit, the shape. And then we can even look at these little rings in the mountains, these little bands. Vertical shapes of the men. Okay, so that's a, you know, how I feel that Edgar Payne composed this picture. Let's look at the bottom one, the sailboats here. What's obvious? Well, there's an obvious horizon line. That's a rectangle. Let's see, obvious triangles. Well, sails are, well, they're triangular. They have straight in them. Obvious circles. No obvious circles here. Really not many curved shapes at all. The sails have curves. Now I've got to be mindful of the placement. When I think of this white sail, it's not centered, it's off center. So that's something to keep in mind. And notice that the horizon line is centered. It's smack dab in the middle, which generally you don't want to do. It generally flattens your picture. It makes it boring. You know, when you put everything in the middle, it can get boring. But this is a case where he kind of broke that rule, and he did it by putting a bunch of stuff covering it up with a bunch of interesting things, and specifically verticals. Look at the beautiful verticals, these sail shapes, these masts, these like long poles. Smaller shapes. This one's a little bit more complex than the landscape scene. Every time I look at Edgar Payne, what I like about it, you know, it looks, at least design wise, it looks very approachable. Like, you know, when I look at this, I go, oh, I can do that. I see how he does that. It's basically a, it's basically rule of thirds, a triangle. Then you just slap on a bunch of, in this case, verticals and slap on some beautiful color and things. But you know, maybe the color and the value choices are difficult, but the design choices are very approachable. You know, anybody can really compose like this. They're so geometric. Oh, it's a little tiny. I guess you could argue that these little bushes are little tiny curves. They're really tiny. And then we can play with the detail if you want, but I'm not going to worry about that now. But yeah, that's really about it for this one. I'm going to move forward here for the sake of time. But you can see it's just a quick study of shape and design and placement. You know, notice the horizon line here is in the middle, and here it's way at the bottom in the lower thirds. So that's something, you know, that's something to play with. Where are you going to place your horizon line and things? So beautiful, beautiful work by Edgar Payne, and he has so many. I mean, obviously, don't stop at two. I would do these often and look. Once you go through Edgar Payne, look for some other landscape greats. Okay, exercise number 4. We're going to do a similar design analysis, but we're going to use movie stills. These are stills from a movie called Only God Forgives. Comment below if you have heard of this movie or seen this movie. The director is cinematographer is absolutely spectacular. His name is Nicholas Winding Refn, I believe. All of his movies are just incredibly, the photography and the composition is incredible. So he's great to study. I believe the same director who did Drive, also starring Ryan Gosling. That's this actor, Ryan Gosling. Comment below if you've seen Drive. Beautiful cinematography. He also did a movie called Neon Demon, which has incredible cinematography, but it's such a dark and evil story. It's hard to watch. Actually, this one is quite dark too. Okay, so let's begin. Starting with the top one. Clear use of framing. Obviously, right? Those two dark shapes, that's a door. So he's framing the shot. So that's we got to get that down. A little crack in the sidewalk, the frame of the door in light. Right now, what I'm doing is looking for obvious verticals and horizontal, obvious rectangles. So I always start with the obvious. The little door our character's leaning on, Ryan Gosling. I'm going to sketch him in now. Just a rough sketch of his silhouette. I don't need to be perfect. I don't need to do a perfect copy. This film is also shot in Bangkok, Thailand. So it's very interesting aesthetic to the buildings. It's not the Thai aesthetic is quite unique. And that's something to play with too, is to look for films and directors and cinematographers from different countries besides Western countries. So we have lots of verticals, right? Lots of horizontals, lots of rectangles. Now, obviously, any good designer will add contrast in some form, right? Where is the contrasting element? Comment below. What's the contrasting element that's adding beautiful contrast to this dominantly rectangular design theme? Comment below. What in this composition, and this is the reason why I chose this composition, there's one element that, besides this silver pot here, there's one element that's adding beautiful contrast and really is adding so much flavor and interest to this entire composition. Do you see it? Besides the character, do you see it? If you answered the beautiful organic fabric, this cloth, look at that. This is exactly why I saw this. I was doing research for this class and I saw this frame and I'm like, that is exactly everything that I talk about in design. One of the things I talk about is contrast, and shape contrast is so important. So this design, this frame, this composition is dominantly rectangles and particularly dark. It's dominantly dark. And notice the brightest element besides the dog's butt there, and that's not an accident either, is this beautiful curve of the beautiful curve of the fabric. So I'm almost convinced that the director, the photographer, saw this building and was like, okay, I I need that. I need that element in the shot. So either that thing was already there or they arranged it. But that is just excellent design. And when you study excellent designs from excellent designers, guess what's going to happen to your design? It's going to obviously get better. And not sure. Comment below if you know, if you're familiar with this movie, you know who the cinematographer is. I don't believe it's the director, Nicholas Refn. I believe he works with a certain cinematographer. or director of photography, but he's excellent. That's all I know. Excellent, excellent to study. Okay, so yeah, on the left, on the right, it's mostly dark. We're not going to do value in this video or for this exercise. That'll come later. But line-wise, I got a good analysis and something I could use in my own work now. Now I know that if I want a dominantly rectangular theme, that all I have to do is put some beautiful, interesting, and organic curved thing there, and it'll create beautiful contrast. So lower left now, just a quick example. I know I'm kind of running out of time here. Bottom example here now, second example. And this is, again, same movie, Only God Forgives. And the reason why, too, I like film studies, movie stills, screen caps, cinematography is, these movies were designed by artists, the good ones, especially like this one. You know, a lot of artistry went into this shot. Both of these shots, it's not just one man or one person. You know what I mean? There's a team of experts. One of them is the director of photography, it's what it's called, or cinematographer, a person who creates the shot. This is a trained master artist in many cases. So again, when you want to become good, you want to copy and model the best in whatever you want to do. You want to be a great comic book artist. You don't copy. You look to like guys like Jim Lee, the best of the best. If you want to be a great filmmaker, you look at Steven Spielberg, Jim Cameron, right? Lucas. You want to be a great musician, great guitar player, you look at Jimi Hendrix. You don't look at things like that. But anyway, cinematography is great for that reason. So back to our assignment here. So look at all the beautiful, again, this is Thailand aesthetic. I live in Thailand for a few years now, so it's very familiar to me now. But yeah, it's quite foreign. I grew up in America, so as a Westerner, it's just foreign, interesting, and beautiful. Very dramatic. Yeah, lots of random, interesting is to me this composition is built on convergence, on the vanishing point. The perspective lines are converging, and look who's in the middle. Not an accident. Our main character is walking right into the middle of this frame. So again, conscious choice, conscious artistry. This study is kind of all over the place. It's complex, so I have a lot of elements to digest, but really the main thing is there's a building on the upper right, or a series of buildings. There's a series of buildings on the upper left. On the left and lower left, there's a food cart with an umbrella. On the lower right, there's a table. So this is probably an outdoor restaurant. And they're all converging. The shot is designed on convergence. The shot above was designed on rectangular framing. This composition is about convergence. So it's about forcing you to look at the vanishing point. And then, of course, in the vanishing point, you put the eye will automatically go there. So you can put whatever you want there. In this case, he put the main character, the main driver of the scene, of the story. So obviously, you can do that as well. And I think we all understand this. Anybody who's watching this and has tried to draw compositions or landscapes or urban scenes, those of you who want to draw comics, who draw comics, you know you have to draw a lot of urban scenes, a lot of architecture and buildings and things. So that part is takes some time and labor and skill, obviously. Okay, so I got the main blocks down very quickly and crudely. Let me just kind of talk through what I see and how you can approach this exercise. So when I look at this, I look for the horizon line, and I look for obvious verticals and obvious horizontals. This is an obvious vertical, somewhat of a vertical here. It's a door. It's a little bit at an angle. And then obvious diagonals in this case, leading to a vanishing point. Cast shadows are really nice and interesting, add a lot of value, contrast, and flavor. But the main thing we need to take away is that converging lines will naturally lead the eye. And you could also see the beautiful combination and contrast of elements, right? Again, mostly man-made things, right? Man-made, although they are more organic looking than, let's say, if this was a big industrial building, you know, this is like a little village or almost like a residential area. Again, lots of straights, rectangles, diagonals. And look at the beautiful contrast he has here with the umbrella. So I'm wondering if that umbrella was a conscious choice or the shape of it. These food carts in Thailand do have coverings. I've seen many varieties. Obviously, maybe you have too if you've traveled to Southeast Asia. You'll see these little food cart things. But anyway, that this round umbrella is a conscious choice, and it's holding this composition together. You take it out, this composition becomes the feeling is different. It becomes more mechanical, becomes less personal, less interesting without the contrast. So another use of contrast by this filmmaker here. So we can put that in our work. All right, I could refine my shapes more, but I'm going to move forward for the sake of time. But I think I got a good, grasp of this composition, and feel like this is a good study. And obviously, you don't want to stop at two. Again, it's just like a muscle. The more you do this, the more you will learn from the process. Okay, our final exercise. I'm actually going to do a full study now. I'm going to try to observe the shapes, but I'm also going to add value, and I'm also going to add detail as best as I can. Basically try to do a nice drawing, somewhat of a finished drawing. Well, not a finished drawing, but a nice study, a nice sketch with full value and detail based on a screen capture. And this screen capture here is from a movie called Shadows by Taiwanese director. Oh, and he's excellent cinematographer. Comment below if you have seen this movie, Shadows. It's a martial arts movie set in, it's a period piece, historical period piece. And it is just absolutely spectacular cinematography. But unfortunately, most of the movie is very dark. So the image below is the frame from the movie. It's really dark. The movie is it's called Shadows for a reason. It's very dark. Dark, not dark theme, but dark visually dark. I turned up the brightness in Photoshop, so I'm going to study the one on top. The one below is actually the original frame from the movie Shadows. So again, step one, try to match the frame. I'm going to try to draw a little bit bigger than the original. Okay, so I got the frame, matched the aspect ratio. Now I'm just kind of what we did before. First, I'm going to analyze the shapes. Look for obvious straights, obvious curves, obvious circles, obvious rectangles. So there's not really many obvious straights. There's no clear horizon line here. It would be roughly there. So I'm just going to just block in light and dark shapes right now. So the shape of the buildings in the upper quadrant, the roof line kind of thing. There, little mountains. I just need to sketch so I know where I'm at in my frame. Here's the tree. It's just kind of like sketching up a portrait. I got to put some lines down so I know where the heck I'm at in my composition. The bridge is super cool. It's absolutely gorgeous. I wonder if this is CG or a real set. Comment below if you know. I haven't looked into the production of this movie, but it's absolutely the photography is absolutely. When I first saw this movie, I must have watched it like 4 times in a row. I watched it every night after work for like 4 nights in a row. I was just like, I could not believe. It came out in 2020, I believe. I could not believe what I was looking at. It's just the design is gorgeous, and I did a bunch of screen caps, obviously. I would like to do a deep analysis of this movie and maybe do some posters, some of my own portfolio pieces. Okay, so I'm just sketching loosely. I'm not analyzing yet. I'm basically trying to place the shapes. So take your time here. I want to do a nice study, but I also want to be accurate, right? I want to be accurate to the composition, to the frame, because that's really what this is about. A little staircase there. So the director is Zhang Yimou, if I'm pronouncing that right. Zhang Yimou, Taiwanese director. Also, he did many films. Oh no, he's not Taiwanese. Sorry, it's mainland China. Hero, Hero. Also Red Cliff, I believe, and I love Hero. So if you probably watch my videos, you know that I look at Hero all the time. I use Hero as an example of composition quite a bit. Hero is also another period piece, historical kind of thing, martial arts movie. But again, Zhang Yimou, excellent, excellent, excellent visual director, visual composer. So definitely someone to look to, definitely someone to study and copy and analyze. Okay. If you're watching at home, it might still be dark. I know I really turned up this brightness as best as I could, tried to maintain the value structure. Dang, it is hella dark. That's all I know. Okay, looks like now the dominant, this is quite a dominant natural theme, dominant kind of organic elements. So no really strong, obvious verticals or obvious curves, but very, very organic. Even the main character, the figure, I don't know if you can see on screen, but he's wearing just basically it's like a big old tunic. It's a big cloth. This character in the film, he's kind of like this old. He's not old, but he's not like a wealthy, uh, samurai kind of character. No, he's more like a vagabond type character, and he's returning to his home village here in this scene. So it's a kind of a, it's not an upscale type of village. Obviously, it's more common folks, villager type folks. So lots of organic, the rocks. You can try to get the grass in here. Because what I want to do when studying the elements is, are the elements and materials being used as contrast? And I would say, yeah, that's one of the reasons why, besides the beautiful composition, the interesting use of elements. So for example, this grass here, notice the shape of the grass, right? It's like this. Same here. You have this long, and then right next to it, you have bricks. Brick, 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 brick. So that is beautiful, subtle contrast. Contrast of shape, material, technique, right? And it's very, very close. It's in the foreground and it's close to the main character. So clearly, obviously, this scene, really, the main character of this scene is not the figure, it's the bridge. The character or the focal point really is the bridge. So that's something, I could be wrong, but it's my analysis of it, because it has all of these contrasting elements. It has really the only curve and the only mechanical curve. It's a pretty sharp and mechanical curve, right? It has really the only long, skinny thing, organic thing, grass, and it has nice contrast. That top of the bridge is in light. It is the focal point. It's the star of this composition. So that's good. See, so that tells me, hey, when I design a scene, when I design an image, the main element doesn't have to be a figure or a face. It could be a background object. So that's that's some tool you can now put in your tool chest. We learned from studying shadows from Zhang Yimou. Look at the tree obviously is a diagonal, and it's framing. Really, the strongest diagonal is the tree, and the tree again close to the bridge. So it's framing the bridge. You see this? Framing the bridge. The tree, the tree is framing the bridge, creating almost a triangle. Really, really nice. And I'm just so curious if this is a real set or if it's CG. Could be a little bit of both, huh? There's a lot of things do that. Such a nice movie. And also, really, too, the star is the value. Only reason I could see the details because I turned up the exposure in Photoshop. but probably in reality, you know, a lot of these things were purposely made dark by the director. It adds to the mood too. I believe it's kind of raining slightly. It adds to the mood. It's a bit of a somber scene, you know, so it adds to that mood. The value is a big part. So anyway, let's put a couple more details. These rocks, I think, you know, they lead your eye into the scene. So that's not an accident. I believe it's not an accident. Okay, I'm going to add some tone now. Okay, I like to just block in, well, typically when I do these, the tone, I like to put everything at a mid-tone. Normally I do these on toned paper in my sketchbook. So I'm just going to basically make everything pretty dark. It's really, there's a few light spots, but I can call those out later. Just make everything pretty dark, 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 dark. In fact, I can just do a nice overall wash over most of this. Because I need to establish mid-tone, which I already have. Darkest dark, which I don't have yet, and then the brightest bright. So I'm going to, basically everything is pretty much dark except for the sky. Really, so I'm just going to darken everything and then call out a couple of lights. And if you're doing this at home, traditional, obviously I would use either marker at this stage or colored pencil or graphite. But I definitely recommend tone paper because it saves you the, it gives you the midtone right away, obviously. That's a bit of a time saver. And visually it's nice. It's easy to work this way. It's easy to gauge, easier to gauge, you know, your darks, easier to gauge your lights once you have the midtone, because then you'll have, the moment you put a dark in or a light, you'll know, okay, well, I have two of the three. I can easily, you'll see once I add the light, you'll see, okay, now we know where I'm at. You can easily tell where you're at value-wise. So start with some tone paper and so what I'm going to do now, I got a nice wash of dark, just make everything dark like the frame. Remember the original was super dark, and that's part of the design is the value of this. It does tell the story. It's part of the story. Dark, somber mood on a dark, somber, rainy day. Okay, so what is the darkest dark? It's under the bridge right here, leaves of the tree, the character. So what I'm gonna do now is add the darkest darks. And the darkest darks start with the bridge. So we know the bridge is like the star. It's the superstar. It's the focal point. And the main character has some dark elements, some dark hair. Even the footpath, the bridge, is pretty dark, and I think that's not an accident. I believe, well, I know for a fact that a lot of the value and the exposure was done in post, was done in editing. It wasn't shot this way, so they could tweak and play with contrast. Obviously, in post-production, the video editor or cinematographer will do that. So that's why I know that the bridge, the top plane of the bridge is unusually bright. And you know, that was a conscious choice, and I believe that was done in post-production. But that's good. You can put that in your work now. You know that, okay, well, again, I could put my brightest contrast, doesn't have to be on a character all the time. It can be on a simple little bridge made of bricks. Okay, I got a nice pass of my darks. I got my darkest dark. Now I'm going to block in the lights just so I know where I'm at value-wise. Okay, what's the brightest bright? Obviously, it's the background, the sky in the background. That's too bright now that I look at it. And it has a bit of this kind of smokiness to it back here. Okay, I adjusted the brightness. It was a little too bright, the original bright I used, but now I know my value range. I know how dark my darks are. I know the brightest area, which is here. So now I could go back to the main focal point, which is the stairs, and see if I could add the brightness to the top planes, which already, I don't know if you guys can see it, but I'm seeing on my screen, it is popping so nicely now. And the top plane of his hat, look how bright his hat is. Top plane of our character's hat. And even his skin is a little bit of brightness. The mist, a little bit of brightness here. It's very kind of misty lake river. And there's mist even in the foreground, which is adding some nice contrast to the bridge again. So value contrast here. Also technique, right? This mist is soft, wispy edges. The bridge is mechanical and hard edged. Well, that's pretty much it. It's a really dark, dark composition. I think drawing wise, feel pretty good. Obviously, it could take more time. If you're following at home, you could definitely take as much time as you need to make the drawing accurate. In fact, that's what I would do. So much nice detail on this bridge. Okay, I think we're at a good stopping point here. I feel good about the drawing. I understand now that a simple arc can be a good shape contrast to a bunch of organic things, and even the grass can be a nice contrast. The shape of the grass can be a nice contrast to the square nature of these buildings. And obviously, the value, we learned here that I could keep the thing fairly dark and still have a nice, interesting composition. If you just give me just enough value or contrast here, like in the sky, to know that, okay, there's light in this scene, and we can paint a dark scene with our light shapes.